If I were to say to you, did you hear the news? President Lincoln has signed the Emancipation Proclamation. You'd reply, Dick, that's great, but that's definitely not news. That took place almost 150 years ago. What if I were to say, hey, Babe Ruth has become the first Major League Baseball player to hit 60 home runs in one season? You'd answer, that's great, but that's not news. He did that on September the 30th, Dick, 1927. Or how about this? Jesse Owens has just won his 4th gold medal at the Olympic Games in Berlin. Fabulous, you'd say, but that's not news. He won that medal on August the 9th, 1936. Then what about Neil Armstrong becoming the first man to step foot on the moon? Same thing. That happened on July the 21st, 1969. You see, all of those were great events. But unless you've been living in a cocoon all your life and shut off completely from the rest of the world, none of them is news to you today. Well, what about when something really important happens, but some people don't hear about it? There's a remarkable story about Hiru Onoda, a Japanese soldier who had been sent behind enemy lines in the Philippines in late 1944, given explicit orders not to die at his own hand and to continue fighting until his superiors came back to get him. Well, the war ended 8 months later, but he didn't get the news, and he didn't quit fighting. In fact, it wasn't until 29 years later, in 1974, that a Japanese college student on vacation found him where he was hiding in the jungles and still fighting in the Philippines. But even then, Onoda wouldn't believe that the war was actually over. So Major Taniguchi, his former superior, now retired and working at a bookstore in Japan, was brought back to the island and to Onoda to tell him that Japan had lost the war and that he was to give up his weapons and surrender to the Filipinos. So on March the 10th, 1975, at the age of 52, Onoda, in full uniform that was somehow still immaculately kept, marched out of the jungle and surrendered his samurai sword to the Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos. The fact that the war had ended back in August of 1945 wasn't news to anyone else on the planet in 1975, but it was to Onoda, because he was hearing it from a credible witness for the very first time. Luke 2:10 tells about angels announcing the birth of Jesus to a group of shepherds. The contemporary English version puts it this way, "But the angel said, 'Don't be afraid. I have good news for you, which will make everyone happy.'" This month, we celebrate Christmas. I have no idea how many times I've heard the Christmas story. It's a wonderful story. It's a dramatic story. It's a story that has changed everything in my life, and I suspect in yours as well. But for you and for me, it's not news. As long as we only recite the story to people who have already heard it this month, we won't really be sharing good news. It's only news if someone is hearing it for the first time. It's hard to imagine that there would be people alive today who hadn't heard about the Emancipation Proclamation, or Babe Ruth's 60th homer, or Jesse Owens' 4 gold medals, or about the end of World War II, or Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. The amazing thing, really the tragic thing, is that this Christmas season, the fact that God's Son was born in Bethlehem 2,000 years ago is still unknown to billions of people. If they hear the message this month, it really will be good news for them, because they'll be hearing it for the very first time. I'm sure that you'll have special times with your family this Christmas season, as I will with mine, when you once again read the story of Jesus' birth. Those will be precious moments for you and for your loved ones, for it's the greatest story of all. But let me suggest that there is nothing more important and nothing really more fulfilling than that you can do this Christmas season than to make it possible for this old story to come as exciting news to people who've never heard it before. Thank you for helping the Mission Society do just that. May God bless you and your family during this Christmas season.